Say what again? Say what again? I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker. Say what one more goddamn time.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here on Average Discussion. I hope you are having a wonderful day. It's been a while since I've done this, so I do hope that you're having a wonderful day. Today is Tuesday, April 15th, or day 105 of season 2025. Now, it's about 65 degrees just outside the Salt Lake City area, and for historical records, should civilization as we know it come to an end, and I don't know, say 10,000 years from now, some society's wandering about and discover some stuff, and they're wondering, how did they enslave an entire group of people to work themselves to death while believing that they are free? Well, if all they can find is this podcast and somehow figure out how to make it play, they'll know that they can exploit the population energy-wise at a price of about $3.32 a gallon for regular unleaded gasoline, and to really showcase the value of commodities, a dozen eggs is roughly $6 a carton. So, today, our episode is titled, Say It Again. That's right, say it again. Say it one more damn time, right? Hope you like that intro, by the way. Hopefully I don't get in any trouble for that, but say it again. Do you ever catch yourself saying a phrase, or do you hear a phrase that instantly makes your blood boil and send you into a fit of frustration? Now, maybe it's just me, but since this is my podcast, that's what I'm going to talk about today, all right? It's quite hilarious sometimes, the phrases we use and the irony associated with them, in my opinion. So let's dissect and get into this whole lions not sheep phenomenon. This is one of my favorite ones because the irony associated with this one just cracks me up every single time. Now, to be fair, I do feel like this trend is kind of dying out, but it's still one of those things I see from time to time, and it just makes me laugh every single time. The irony that consistently amuses me is that the very individuals who proudly display these stickers or shirts or hats or whatever, proclaiming their supposed free-thinking nature, often seem to combine into their own distinct little groups. Now, they see themselves as these enlightened outliers of sort, right? So independent that their revolutionary discussions happen over a slightly cheaper, cup of gas station coffee versus the fancy stuff the sheeple are drinking. They project this image of renegade patriotism, often while faithfully sporting their work attire to diligently earn their money and pay their taxes. Good citizens, indeed, good citizens. There's this implied superiority over the go-with-the-flow crowd, and you can almost set your watch by their enthusiasm for certain cultural touchstones, like streaming Tombstone and feeling like a true iconologist, right? They'll passionately debate the need for radical change, maybe even revolution, yet the idea of slightly exceeding the speed limit, actually breaking a rule, seems to be beyond their abilities. Their critique over more progressive ideas often boils down to some simplistic nostalgia, like yearning for some vaguely defined good old days, rather than a nuanced, constructive engagement. And often this self-proclaimed lion identity seems intertwined with a relentless work ethic to fund a very specific image of rural freedom, complete with a hefty debt on recreational toys, used sparingly for that one annual, heavily documented, beer-fueled, rock-shooting mountain trip, punctuated by enthusiastic "America" captions. It's a bold roar from people who generally look like a wheel-less Mini Cooper, unable to go anywhere fast. So, that's kind of my thoughts on lions, not sheep. It's extremely ironic to me that they end up kind of simultaneously becoming the very thing that they're so against. It's kind of hilarious. It's a lot like the other side of the equation where they're so worked up about this concept and idea of electric vehicles being the way of the future, yet as soon as there's a political figure they don't agree with, they destroy that very product that they were so excited for. It's quite ironic. But let's delve into another phrase, which we've all heard countless times, often since we were kids, right? That practice makes perfect. Now think about it for a second. Maybe you tried learning an instrument or a new language or even just perfecting your free throws, right? How often did just practicing magically transform you into flawless? For me, the reality was usually a bit more, well, consistent mediocrity, right? This idea of perfection that dangled in front of us, who exactly is holding the golden standard for what is considered perfection? Is it some universal objective level or skill? Or is it more about the subjective opinions of coaches, judges, or even just our own harsh inner critic, right? One person deems perfect, another might see as technically proficient, but lacking soul, or even just plain flawed. And here's where I think the phrase really falls apart. If anything, practice makes habit, right? Now think about it. If you learn to type with 2 fingers, like your grandma or something, years of dedicated practice will just make you lightning fast with 2 fingers. That's it. You've ingrained a habit, a deeply rooted one, but you haven't suddenly achieved some pinnacle of typing perfection. The same goes for sports. Practice a bad swing 1,000 times, and all you'll be is consistently bad. You've cemented a counterproductive habit. The focus on perfect can be particularly damaging, especially for young people. I mean, imagine a kid pouring their energy into a hobby only to feel like a failure because they haven't reached the mythical perfection despite all their effort. Now, this phrase can breed discouragement, stifle passion, excuse me. Anybody who listens knows I can't read my own notes, right? And lead to a fixed mindset. The belief of their abilities are set in stone rather than something they can grow. Because let's be honest, raw practice in a vacuum isn't enough. You need guidance, proper instruction, and constructive feedback to steer your efforts in the right direction. You need a dose of luck, sometimes being in the right place at the right time, or having inherent advantages often play a role, right? And crucially, you need opportunity. That's probably the biggest one. You need the opportunity. All the practice in the world won't matter if you never get the chance to showcase your skills or apply what you've learned. Opportunity is probably a big component of that, right? So instead of this lofty and often unattainable practice makes perfect, maybe we should adopt a more realistic or encouraging mantra, right? How about practice makes progress, or consistent effort leads to development? That's a bit lengthy, but something along those lines, right? Even practice makes permanent, which highlights the importance of how you practice. These phrases acknowledge the journey, sure, the potential of growth, and the understanding that improvement, not some abstract perfection, is the more likely and healthier outcome. So ultimately, while putting in work is essential, the idea that practice alone guarantees some flawless and end result is misleading and potentially harmful. Let's shift our focus from chasing an elusive perfection to valuing consistent effort, seeking good guidance, and recognizing the path to improvement is rarely a straight line to flawlessness. I really just do not like that idea that practice makes perfect. It definitely makes habit. So here's another one that I jotted some thoughts down about. All right. Let's talk about corporate doublespeak. Specifically when businesses pat themselves on the back with the oh so generous announcement. We're giving you a raise to match the cost of living increase or something along those lines. And what does that often translate to in the real world? I mean, if you're lucky, maybe a measly 2%, right? Some places will even insult your intelligence with some ridiculously specific number like 1.6%, followed by a lengthy self-congratulatory explanation of how they wrestled tooth and nail to secure that monumental fraction of a percentage for you. Meanwhile, let's not forget the elephant in the room, right? The actual cost of living likely skyrocketed by something closer to 9% the year before, so let's do some quick math here. They're giving you a tiny bump that doesn't even keep pace with the inflation, which means in real terms, you're essentially doing the same job for less money than you were making last year. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, my benevolent, profit-driven superiors. How incredibly nice of you to throw us this microscopic bone while the actual cost of everything we need to survive continues to relentlessly climb, right? It truly warms the heart, doesn't it? And here's the kicker, the part that really grinds my gears about it. These same companies, the ones doing, doling out these pathetic cost of living increases, have absolutely no problem raising the prices of their own goods and services, often by the exact same inflated percentages, if not more. They're quick to pass those increased costs onto the consumer, lining their own pockets. But when it comes to compensating the very people who generate that revenue, suddenly they're pinching pennies like they're single-handedly funding NASA or something. It feels less like a caring gesture and more like a condescending pat on the head, while they simultaneously, pick their own pocket. They're essentially saying, yes, everything is more expensive, and we're contributing to that. But here's a few crumbs to make you feel like we care, even though you're objectively worse off than you were before. Crazy. So the next time you hear a company touting a cost of living increase that barely registers, remember what it truly represents. Not a favor, but often just a way to mask the reality of stagnant or even decreasing real wages. Just think outside the box, right? That's the next one we're going to talk about, because that's what they'll tell you, right? Just hearing that phrase sometimes makes my eye twitch. It really does. It's like the go-to, the catch-all solution for any problem in the workplace, isn't it? And you know what immediately, I don't know, what I immediately think is, stop creating the damn boxes then in the first place. You want me to think outside the box? Stop creating it. I mean, seriously, how many times have you been in a situation where the very people asking for your brilliant outside-the-box solutions are the ones who meticulously crafted the very limitations causing the problem? They're the architects of this metaphorical box. And then they're surprised when we can't Houdini our way out of it using only the power of unconventional thought. And the kicker, you try to discuss the practicalities, the constraints, the very walls of this precious box, and the response is breezy, right? It's, oh, you just got to think outside of that, man. It's like they're allergic to acknowledging the very real barriers they've constructed, right? It's even more infuriating when you remember that you probably saw this coming, right? Like you probably told them this was coming, and you might have even raised concerns, pointed out the potential pitfalls before they became a full-blown problem, right? But no, they kept building those walls layer by layer, and now they want you to perform some kind of creative miracle to bypass their own creation. So you've got the builders of the box constantly preaching about the virtues outside the box living, blah, blah, blah. But here's the $1 million question. How often are they actually willing to implement anything that truly falls outside their carefully constructed regulations and rules? The answer, more often than not, is a resounding not really. And why the hesitation? Well, sometimes it might be a genuine lack of understanding in how to navigate the very systems they've put in place. They built this labyrinth, and now they're lost in it too, right? Maybe it's that simple. But let's be real. Sometimes I think it ties back into the whole lions not sheep facade, right? Admitting that a truly outside-the-box solution might require them to ask for help, to admit they don't have all the answers. That's a blow to their ego. Heavens forbid a lion appear inferior by needing to consult someone who might know a different way, right? It's kind of weird how they kind of go hand in hand in some regard. But ultimately, this whole think outside the box mantra often feels like a lazy way for management to, what's the word I'm thinking of? Neglect or pass the buck, basically, their responsibility for the limitations they've created. Instead of dismantling the boxes themselves, they just expect their employees to magically, phase through these walls. It's a lot easier to say that than to actually do, right? Especially when you're the ones who laid the bricks. So, food for thought on that one. But let's kind of cover one of my personal favorites. And then there's the well-intentioned yet often utterly useless piece of advice. Just be yourself. Oh yeah. If only it were that simple, right? The sentiment is nice, sure. It's all about boosting self-esteem, embracing your individuality, and never doubting the perfect, unique person that you are. But here's the punchline, the big but that often follows that well-meaning encouragement. You don't actually want me to just be myself. Trust me on this one. Over the years, I've had a front row seat to how my authentic self is perceived. And let me tell you, it's not always a standing ovation, right? It's not. And countless times when I've dared to just, exist in my natural state, the feedback has been less than, promising, right? I've been labeled intimidating. I've been told I come across too direct. Apparently my unfiltered thoughts and straightforward communication style don't always mesh with everyone else's comfort zone, right? So what gives? We're told to embrace our true selves, to celebrate our uniqueness, yet there's this unspoken asterisk, right? This invisible clause in the be yourself contract, if you would. It's more like be yourself, but only the parts of yourself that don't make me feel uncomfortable. Be the version of yourself that validates my emotional thought process. It seems the encouragement to just be yourself often comes with a hefty side of expectation to conform to some unwritten social code, some pre-approved version of you that fits neatly within the established norms. It's a subtle or not so subtle pressure to sand down your edges, right? To soften your directness, to dim your intensity, all in the name of making everyone else feel a little bit more at ease. So the next time someone earnestly advises you to just be yourself, take it with a grain of salt. Because while the intention might be pure, the reality is often far more nuanced. The world, it seems, often prefers a carefully curated version of you. One that's unique enough to be interesting, but not so authentic that it actually challenges the status quo, heaven forbid, but makes someone feel a little bit intimidated. So, what is it? You want me to be myself and think outside the box to earn my cost of living increase with the cumulative knowledge learned from the years of perfection practice because you only hire lions, not sheep? Or can we admit to ourselves that you want me to act in the way that meets our comfort level while operating within the boundaries of your box, while being grateful for your 1.3% level of care, using the unguided practice and conforming to the herd like a sheep? Which one is it? You can't have both. See, independence is a great motivator for poster slogans, right? When placed in the break rooms of the corporate slavery establishments, which I admit I voluntarily subject myself to, just like most others. I just don't pretend I am somehow different from others because of the slavery I chose to do. In the end, it all appears to be the same, minus the view sometimes, I guess, right? The view changes. It's funny to me, though, because I've done the best professionally and financially when I completely lost my give a shit factor towards my job. Like, that's no joke. When I stopped giving a shit about my job, I've actually had the most success, and it's kind of crazy to me, and it scares me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I used to bring my work problems home with me, right? Mentally, at least, for the longest time. And I still do occasionally, I think. But for the most part, I don't think about this place after I walk out the doors. I really don't. So I guess in a way, I'm just being myself. But what I've noticed is myself generally irritates the powers that be, right? I suppose I should look into getting a lion shirt and sticker for my car, maybe. Maybe I fit in more with that ideology than I originally thought. But I think I would prefer a tiger or something, bigger and badder. Doesn't operate in a box like lions who are dependent on a crew. I don't know. What are your thoughts? That's what I want to know. I'm interested in what your thoughts are. What are some slogans that or phrases that just really irritate you and really just get you going? I'd be interested to know what those are. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X at Average Discussion. Or you can email me directly at averagediscussion@gmail.com. Please be sure to like and follow this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. It really does help. Give us a rating. Give me a rating if you like it. If you don't like it, I get that too. This is a little bit different. I tried to tie my notes a little bit differently. Give it a little bit of a premise. I'm not really sure if it's working out or if I'm even going to stick with it. But that's what this is all about. It's just trying different things, right? So that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you for listening. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, folks, please take care of yourselves. Please take care of each other. And until next time, I'm out.